A girl named Wing just finishes her bath, and suddenly there's a knock on the door. Thinking it's her friend, Wing opens the door only to find a stranger named Kwok Wah. He barges in, pulling out some money, assuming that Wing works here as a prostitute in this room. He then ruthlessly assaults Wing, despite she is frightened. Fortunately, her friend Chen, who is across the street, sees Kwok Wah through the window. He rushes back and, without hesitation, confronts and defeats Kwok Wah. In the end, both of them manage to escape the apartment. After that, they decide it's time to go to the local police station to report what Kwok Wah has done. When they arrive, they meet a deputy chief named Jeff, who asks Chen to step into another room. While Jeff and some of his officers talk with Wing, one of the older officers, Guai, realizes that Wing has a mental disability and assures them that there's no need to worry. Jeff and his team then begin questioning Wing about the person who assaulted her. Wing describes the perpetrator as a man with a star tattoo on his right hand. However, as they delve deeper into the details, they are shocked to discover that the perpetrator is none other than their own police chief and superior, Kwok Wah. Kwok Wah, who is also at the station, overhears Wing's words. Following this, Kwok Wah gathers all his subordinates, including Jeff, and tells them that he believes Wing is a prostitute. He claims to have paid her, so he feels entitled to complete the trade, which leads him to insult her without hesitation. However, they quickly realize afterward that Wing is not what they assume, but rather a student with a mental disability. Wing lives with her grandma, and Chen, who sells steamed buns near a high school every day. One day, Wing and her grandma buy bread from him. Chen can't help but stare at Wing, as he falls in love with her at first sight. The grandmother is upset because he always looks at her granddaughter. Since then, Chen takes the time to visit the neighborhood where Wing goes to school, hoping to catch a glimpse of his crush. One evening, Chen sees the grandmother searching for Wing because she hasn't returned home since noon. Chen decides to help, searching the village for her. After a while, he finally finds Wing lost near the mountains. Chen brings Wing back to her grandmother. As Wing has a mental disability, so she sometimes forgets the way home and behaves a bit oddly, but Chen doesn't mind because he truly loves her. A few days later, when Chen doesn't see Wing or her grandmother, he becomes worried and decides to check on them. After selling his bread, he goes to Wing's home. To his surprise, a crowd, including the police and social services, is gathered outside. It turns out that Wing's grandmother passed away 3 days ago, and Wing was found lying beside her. People believe that Wing's mental health has deteriorated, so they want to take her to a psychiatric hospital. That night, Chen sneaks into the hospital where Wing is being treated. Fortunately, Wing is in a back ward, so Chen manages to help her escape. He takes her to an arcade to cheer her up, as she's feeling down. It turns out that Wing has feelings for Chen too. After they both calm down, Chen takes Wing back to her apartment. Unfortunately, when they arrive, the police have already locked the apartment. Just as Chen is about to break in, a woman named Anna, who lives next door to Wing, appears. Feeling sorry for Wing, she invites them to stay at her place. Anna tells them that she will be away for a few days and invites Wing and Chen to stay in her apartment. They discover that Anna is a prostitute, and she even gives Chen the freedom to do as he pleases. After Anna leaves, Chen accidentally sees Wing taking a bath. However, he chooses to go out and look for some food around the apartment. At this point, things take a terrifying turn. But now, to cover up his crime, Kwok Wah orders everyone to remain silent and begins framing Chen as if he were the culprit. About 30 minutes later, Kwok Wah's subordinates start bombarding Chen with countless questions, leaving him feeling cornered. In this tense moment, Chen accidentally notices a photo of Kwok Wah on the table and suddenly realizes that the police are planning to frame him. Desperately, he tries to escape with Wing. Chen attempts to flee, but unfortunately, he fails. They torture him, and worse, the police even abuse Wing in front of Chen, taking satisfaction in their cruel acts. Afterward, they begin fabricating a story to make it seem as if Chen forcibly took a police gun. They place the gun in an unconscious Chen's hand. Meanwhile, they threaten Wing, warning her not to say a word, or they will throw Chen in jail. During the trial, the police stick to their false statements as planned. As a result, Chen is charged with assaulting a law enforcement officer and is eventually sentenced to 6 months in prison. While imprisoned, Chen is observed repeatedly trying to erase his fingerprints, clearly planning for the day he would be released. In short, 6 months later, Chen is released from prison. He waits for Wing, but when he sees her, he can't help but cry. It turns out that Wing is pregnant due to the actions of the police. Anyone would be deeply hurt by what they've gone through. Wing tries to put on a brave face to help Chen move on. A few days later, they find happiness in being together again. However, Chen's resentment towards the police still burns within him, and he becomes determined to seek revenge. One day, he follows a pregnant woman, who happens to be one of the police officer's wife, back to her home after she goes shopping. When her husband, Ting, returns home, he is suddenly attacked by Chen. A few days later, the police receive reports from residents that divers have found a foul-smelling plastic bag in the river. They bring the bag to the police station for inspection and are horrified to discover a crushed fetus inside. To their shock, they also find Ting's ID card in the bag, prompting them to rush to Ting's home. Upon arrival, Ting is nowhere to be found. Their shock deepens when they discover Ting's wife dead, her stomach slashed open, with no fetus inside. This confirms that the bag in the river contained Ting's unborn child. Meanwhile, Guai, who recently brought his pregnant wife home, notices her staring at the window, looking terrified. About 30 minutes later, Guai tries to contact one of his police colleagues, but when his colleague answers the phone, Guai remains silent, which makes his colleague feel that something is wrong. Soon, other police colleagues arrive at Guai's home. They are stunned when they find Guai's wife dead, her stomach slashed open in the same manner as the previous case. Worse still, they find Guai lifeless in the hot tub. At this point, Jeff begins to suspect that these events might be Chen's way of taking revenge on them. The news of the serial murders targeting police officers spreads across national television. The authorities conduct thorough searches by inspecting all vehicles entering and leaving the city. Before long, they stop the bus Chen is riding on. Fearing Jeff's suspicions, Chen decides to quietly slip away. Unfortunately, Jeff catches up with him, leading to a chase, and Chen is eventually captured and taken to the interrogation room. There, Chen finds himself being tortured by Jeff and one of his accomplices. They are determined to force Chen to confess in front of their colleagues. Despite the torture, Chen remains silent, which only fuels their determination to continue tormenting him. As Chen refuses to confess, Jeff even considers shooting him in the head, but Chen remains resolute in his silence. Meanwhile, at home, Wing sees the news on TV that Chen has been arrested for killing a police officer and his family. The news deeply disappoints Wing, as it means they will be separated from their loved ones. Wing tries to contact the police, but for some reason the call drops. Following this, Wing goes into the bathroom, intending to end her pregnancy with a knife. We then see Wing disposing of the knife in a canal. Back at the police station, just as Jeff is about to take harsh action against Chen, a police captain arrives from headquarters and angrily reprimands Jeff. The captain tells Jeff that they've apprehended the wrong person because the real serial killer has recently targeted a pregnant woman, none other than Wing. This suggests that Wing intentionally created this situation to clear Chen of any wrongdoing. Realizing that Jeff and his team have violated protocol, the captain immediately chastises them. The captain then asks Chen why he ran during the police raid. Chen explains that he was wrongly trapped by the police. Given this information and the lack of evidence, Chen is eventually cleared of all charges. Meanwhile, Jeff's subordinates suggest confessing the truth to the police captain, revealing the real motive behind Chen's supposed revenge against them. However, Jeff adamantly refuses, as it would damage their own pride. At the same time, Jeff and his colleagues attempt to contact the retired police chief, Kwok Wah. Jeff informs Kwok Wah that they plan to eliminate Chen and Wing as soon as possible. Chen had already devised a plan to rescue Wing from the hospital before the police could harm them. However, just as Chen and Wing are about to escape, Jeff catches up with them, sparking a frantic chase. Jeff's men are ordered to intercept the ambulance Chen is using. In one encounter, Jeff's men locate Chen's vehicle and open fire, causing it to crash into a gas station. This leads to a fierce confrontation between the two sides. Shortly after, Jeff arrives and attempts to ram Chen's car. Fortunately, Chen manages to avoid the collision and the chase continues. Eventually, Jeff catches up with Chen and begins beating him. In a moment of desperation, Chen stumbles upon an iron plate and uses it without hesitation to strike back, severely injuring Jeff. The next day, Kwok Wah finds Wing in the ambulance. Without a second thought, he shoots the still unconscious Wing. Kwok Wah then fires a shot into the air to lure the now conscious Chen from the previous night. Hearing the gunshot, Chen, who has just regained consciousness, stirs. He tries to approach Kwok Wah, who, eager to finish the job, quickly shoots Chen until his gun is empty. Kwok Wah then tells Chen that if he survives, they should meet again. 5 years later, Kwok Wah is still haunted by the guilt of what he did to Wing and Chan. Now living in another city, he works as a teacher. Additionally, Kwok Wah frequently appears on national television, volunteering for religious and charitable causes. On the other hand, Chen has survived, and he spots a television program featuring Kwok Wah. Now knowing where Kwok Wah is, Chen plans his revenge. Before heading to confront Kwok Wah, Chen shaves his head, resembling a figure of wrath. Chen goes to meet Kwok Wah, who is teaching children how to play the piano. When Kwok Wah sees Chen, he invites him for coffee, trying to make amends and seek forgiveness for his past wrongs. However, consumed by revenge, Chen ends Kwok Wah's life on the spot without hesitation. In the final scene, Chen and Wing continue their lives together. Wing has survived, but due to the gunshot wound inflicted by Kwok Wah, she is now confined to a wheelchair.